Well, things just keep getting more and more exciting. Many things breaking in the news. Let me give you a brief overview. Hamas took over the Temple Mount for a while. Every time there's a special Jewish holiday, the Hamas people, or at least the Palestinians, arrange for many militants to go onto the Temple Mount. They start throwing rocks. They start waving Palestinian flags. They begin to chant Allahu Akbar. Well, it happened again, and of course the Israeli police, the response was, no Jews can come up here. Well, they should have arrested the people that's causing the problem, and that way it would have cleared the way for the Jews to be there. Nevertheless, they did not do that. This is a pattern that is continuing. However, the Jewish powers that be are getting tired of it, and within the last week or so, they once again spent an entire day at the Israeli Knesset discussing the time that the Jewish people should assert their rightful place to worship on the one place where God said, I will put my name there forever. So that's all happened, actually. I think that surfaced on Monday. Here we are, Tuesday. So these things are just breaking in your news. Many other things are happening, especially in the Ukraine, of course. In the Ukraine, the Russian factions are attempting to stir up problems and to create demonstrations so that perhaps the Ukraine will become part of Russia again. It's no secret that Russian President, hold on 1 minute, but the Russian President, Vladimir Putin, he wants the Soviet Union to be reconstructed. He would like to preside over a superpower once again. Already we've seen Russia quickly annex Crimea to Russia. Now then, he would love to take the rest of the Ukraine. He would love to put the Soviet Union back together again. We're going to have to see how all that turns out. A lot of people say that the Cold War is reemerging. What is really going on here? Well, that's the kind of a world that we're living in right now. However, what we want to do here today is we want to ask one question, and I'm hoping all of you can leave this program today with the answer of this one question, and that is this. Okay, negotiations are ongoing. The Palestinians and the Israelis are talking every day. But what if they get a peace deal, but it's not the peace deal prophesied in the Bible that will mark the beginning of the final 7 years to Armageddon? What if they adopt a deal, but it doesn't turn out to be the one that's prophesied in the Scripture? Now, that's an important question, because if we say it is the deal and it turns out not to be the deal, it's going to dash a lot of faith, and it's going to cause a lot of confusion. Well, I've thought about this a lot. Now, I suppose I've been the leading advocate for the possibility that this event called the confirmation of the covenant could occur right away. You all know that Secretary of State John Kerry has set April the 29th as the date to conclude a peace deal. Now he's saying, I need more time. Let's extend out. Negotiations are happening on a daily basis. So here we sit. We're observing all of this drama. Are the final 7 years about to begin? Endtime Ministries, once we become convinced that the final 7 years have begun, we are prepared to send a magazine to every single home in Israel, warning them that the final 7 years to Armageddon did just begin. Well, so the question is, how are we going to know? There have been many peace agreements before. Let's go over some of the peace agreements. We know back at the Oslo Accords, if you're old enough to remember the famous handshake between Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat, Bill Clinton standing in the background, sort of bringing them together. Well, you know, a handshake is the way you confirm something, right? When you shake on it. And many of us thought at the time, this looks like the confirmation of the covenant. I was among them. However, I didn't know for sure. So we said in our magazine, this may be the confirmation of the covenant. However, there's nothing in this agreement that provides for the building of Israel's temple on the Temple Mount. And according to the prophecy, the temple must be built within 3 years of the consummation of the agreement. So let's wait and see what's going to happen. Well, we did. We waited. And it wasn't but a matter of a few weeks until bus bombings began. The whole thing started falling apart. And it became obvious that it was not the agreement. I said in the magazine when the handshake took place, on the front page of Endtime magazine, was the caption, "Have the final 7 years begun?" Question mark. And we went into the pros and the cons. At the time, I told people, I don't know for sure yet. Let's see what happens with the temple. Well, it wasn't long until we were able to go back to the people and said, no, that wasn't it. That was not the confirmation of the covenant. There's too many things that are not being done. Well, then came the historic peace conference of the year 2000, when Yasser Arafat and Ehud Barak met with Bill Clinton on the Temple Mount. They closed themselves in for 2 solid weeks. It looked like they had a deal. But they get to the issue of the Temple Mount. Arafat says, we can't give it up. Barak said, wait a minute. You've got your first holy site in Mecca. You have your second holy site in Medina. This is only your third holy site. We Jews don't even have our first holy site. Arafat said, we can't do it. So finally, Bill Clinton said, well, look, just share it. Why can't you both worship there? Arafat said it won't work. You can't put Jews and Muslims on the same 35 acres without them killing each other. And Barak said, yeah, it can work. We could put it under UN supervision. The world community could keep the peace. But it didn't happen. It all fell apart. Well, then President George W. Bush, in November of 2007, he put together the Annapolis Peace Conference. Once again, hope rose. However, Abbas said, well, we've got to be able to return 4 million Palestinians to the land of Israel. Well, Israel knew if you bring 4 million in, we've already got over 1 million. They're going to be able to outvote us. We'll have an Arab prime minister next time around. We can't do that. The request was unreasonable, just could not happen. So finally, those talks fell apart. Every single effort at peace talks so far has ended up in failure. So now then, here we go again. President Barack Obama, while he was yet candidate Obama, said, look, I will not wait until the last year of my presidency to try to get a peace agreement in the Middle East like Clinton did, like George W. Bush did. I am going to, at the very beginning of my presidency, start attempting to solve the problem in the Middle East. And he did. Actually, the first day of his presidency, the day after his inauguration, he announced that former Senator George Mitchell would be his special envoy to the Middle East. Now, Mitchell's number one claim to fame was that he brought peace to Northern Ireland between Catholics and Protestants, something no one had ever been able to do, yet he got the job done. Everybody said, well, what a brilliant move. If anybody can do it, George Mitchell can. So he began to work, and he worked hard for 2 years. However, nothing. Everything ended in disappointment. Finally, former Senator George Mitchell resigned in disgust, could not get it done. Well, we didn't hear much about it for the rest of the first term of President Obama. However, when he was reelected earlier, of course, in, 2012, and he actually took office again in 2013, he said, there's 2 things I want for this second term of my presidency. I want to solve the problem with Iran, and I want to bring peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis. So the first trip that he made of his second term was to the nation of Israel. He took his new Secretary of State, John Kerry, with him, and they launched an effort to get peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis. By July the 30th, They had entered into agreement with the Palestinians and Mahmoud Abbas and with the Israelis and Benjamin Netanyahu that they would negotiate for 9 months. Abbas said, look, we've tried this. We've tried it. It doesn't work. Kerry said, give me 9 months. If after 9 months we don't get a deal, you can go ahead and file your charges at the World Court against Israel. You can file charges of crimes against humanity, of war crimes, if that's what you've got to do. But that's going to be a road down to chaos. Give me 9 months. Finally, Abbas said, okay, I will do it. So they started the negotiation process. The first sessions were held in August, and they continued through September, October, November. Now, the secret was everything was kept quiet. Kerry said to the negotiators, look, if every time we have a negotiating session, we come out, we have a press conference, we air what we've been talking about, we air our differences, it's going to be chaotic. It's going to cause arguments. It's going to fill the newspapers. It's going to cause all kinds of conflict. We'll never have peace if we do it that way. So I'm asking you to not let it be known what we're talking about. If anything needs to be said publicly, let me do it as the mediator. I will be the lone spokesperson in the Middle East peace talks. So that's what they've done from August of 2013 until right now. Oh, we've heard a little bit, but nobody knows for sure what they've decided on or what they have not decided on. However, we know for sure the deadline was April the 29th of 2014, just a mere 14 days from today. So are they any closer than they were? Do we even know for sure where they are? Is there any chance that they're going to suddenly announce an agreement? I mean, here we are. We're 14 days away from the deadline. Kerry said, give me till April the 29th. After that, you can do what you want to do. Well, now then, he's leaning on Israel and the Palestinians to extend the talks till January the 31st of 2015. I don't know whether they're going to announce an agreement between now and the 29th or not. But if they do, we're going to tell you in our next segment what to look for. Because they can announce an agreement, but it may not be the agreement prophesied to start the final 7 years. We'll see.